So, moving on to our next story, we're talking about a heartwarming story that for some reason on the internet might actually be controversial. Because despite the fact that you look at the story, and I mean, I don't know about, yeah, I know about you, Tristan. You and I look at the story and we're like, oh, this is actually amazing.
Right.
There are some people that still like to be like, why is mental illness being funded? And it's like, oh, joy. Oh, fucking joy. Right? Isn't that wonderful, Tristan? Anyway, so there was a Donkey Kong stream. I did
Yes.
not watch the stream, sadly. I really should have, and frankly, I will be donating to mermaids in the near future, but I sadly was unable to watch the stream. Now, at the time that this article was posted, obviously now the stream has ended, but a YouTuber by the name of, I want to make sure I get his name correct, H Bomber Guy. So H Bomber Guy did a 2-day long and did not stop live stream of Donkey Kong 64. So he did it straight, Tristan.
Yeah.
Which at 24 hours, I was like, you go. At
Right.
like 50 some odd hours, I was like, holy shit, dude, please go to
And
sleep.
there's actually been other YouTubers that have been doing this as well, like going for quite a
Yes.
while for charity streams.
Yes, not just for the trans community, but also for other communities as well.
Yeah.
So, H Bomber Guy, he is not in the trans community himself. We should note that, but he is bi. He's out as bi. So, I mean, some people would say, hey, you're not in the LGBTQ plus community. Some say that, I mean, you aren't trans in that community, but you are in the LGBTQ plus community. Because there also has been some people saying like, oh, he's not trans. Maybe we can have trans people getting visibility for doing this. And frankly, I agree. I think we should have more trans people getting visibility for making streams like this. And also just as creators. But in this case, it was a dude who, while he was not trans, he was still in the LGBTQ plus community. And I think that does matter. Where, in my opinion,
supportive.
He's still being supportive. No, because for me, I look at it like this, right? If someone who is Cuban, even though actually I am Cuban and Puerto Rican, but if someone who was Dominican did a charity stream for the hurricane in Puerto Rico and was trying to raise money for that, I would be like, wow, thank you. Now, I will say that you know, there weren't... some people were saying that there weren't enough trans people on the stream, either invited or who came onto the stream. And I agree with that because, again, that's what some people have been saying. So I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. However, another thing, too, is H Bomber Guy did not start this thinking that he would raise $350,000. He just thought, I'm doing a charity stream.
Right. I mean, the original goal was only set for 500, I think.
Yeah. So the original goal was set very, very, very low compared to 350,000. So with a goal that small, he's just doing this because he was specifically doing this not just to help out UK trans youth, because it's a UK trans youth charity called Mermaids that the money was going towards, but it's also based around the fact that there is a man called Graham, I think it's Graham Linehan. Graham Lineham. We're just gonna call him Fuckface for the majority of this podcast.
Right.
So, well, because Graham Linehan, he said a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, right? I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, as someone who's in the US, someone who's born in New York based, I want to say this, right? Graham Linehan should be able to say anything he wants to, but then also, as long as it's not inciting violence.
Yeah.
But then we should also come up and shit on him for it.
Right.
Appropriately.
Yeah.
But the issue is that Graham Linehan doesn't seem like he wants that level of attention. He just wants to be able to say it and then get paid to say it as if it's okay. And it's like, no, dude. Dude, go fuck yourself.
Right.
And then we move on. Not from what he said, but we move on to another person who said some shitty things. So and it sucks too, because apparently he's known for creating sitcoms Father Ted, Black Books, and the IT Crowd. So, or the It Crowd. So it's funny material, apparently, he's been behind. I've heard some of it's problematic, but the IT Crowd, I've heard very good things about it. But you know what? Again, it's hard to separate art from artist when you have the person trying to fuck themselves over. This isn't like he said some of the stuff behind closed doors and he's like, I'm sorry, I have changed. He is currently 50 years old and he just said something the other day.
Right.
Like, we have articles where he says, trans activists don't realize the damage they do. He's also compared trans people to Nazis, because that's fucking normal. Sarcasm. Sarcasm. Yeah. No, he's just...
An asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to find some more comments, but you know what? That also does very much just solve it.
Kind of sums it up.
Yeah, kind of fucking sums it up. And so again, he's allowed to say this stuff, but we're gonna call him a piece of shit. Oh, here's what he said too. Here's something from January 20th, folks. And this is, by the way, pinned on his Twitter. It's fucking pinned. And if you don't know what pinned means, Tristan, it means that even though he made this, it's on top of the list. Even though he made it on the 20th, he decided to pin this himself.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, folks. In the same way that you don't tell anorexic kids they need liposuction, you don't tell vulnerable kids with feelings of dysphoria that they need surgery and drugs. You certainly don't tell them fairy stories about being quote-unquote born in the wrong body. I'm only laughing because I look at Tristan's face, and like normally I try to make his face look like that by saying things that are not offensive, but that are like things like, you know, just like, oh, hey, Tristan, did you hear this? And it's not a terrible thing. It's actually something that, like...
Yeah, no. Yeah. Let me make this clear. You don't make my face look like this, Matt, because you're not a piece of shit.
No, but I do say things to try and break Tristan. So I smirk because I see his face, but then I have to remember, yeah, he's making that face because this guy, like you just accurately said, Tristan, is a piece of shit. Yeah. So... anyway, so, and some people said, understandably, you know, does it, like, even though they don't like this guy, understandably, should we only do this reactionary? Shouldn't we just do stuff like this charity stream more often in general? And to that I say, you are right. That is true. We should do this more. But in this case, we're talking about this one case where it was done because Graham Linehan is a piece of shit. So, want to mention as well, let's see, yes, you are correct, by the way, Tristan, because there's two different articles that we had up, one that I read more so than the other. The initial goal was $500, and then they ended up raising more than $350,000. We also want to mention that because I didn't see the stream, I thought that H-Bomber guy was playing, who, by the way, his real name is Harry Brewis. I thought he was playing the original Donkey Kong. He was actually charity streaming Donkey Kong 64, and the reason why that's relevant is because he got a bunch of different people to come on the channel or the stream to talk about their experiences and apparently, or just in general, what they feel about not only trans rights but also sometimes the game itself. Right. So not only did they get activist and whistleblower Chelsea Manning, author Owen Jones, and Donkey Kong 64 voice actor and composer Grant Kirkhope, they also got U.S. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And despite whatever you think about her politics, you have to acknowledge that it's cool to see a younger person who is also a congressperson actually go on a live stream. Yeah. And did you hear what she said about not only about trans rights but also about Donkey Kong 64? Or I'm sorry, the N64.
No.
Okay. So two things. One, H-Bomber guy, and I think a friend of his says, "Can you say trans rights are humans' rights?" And she said, "Oh, of course, trans rights are human rights, and also that, you know, every American should be afforded the same amount of rights." And again, American because she's American. Like, H-Bomber guy is from the UK, but she is American. So she's actually from the Bronx. So anyway, Bronx, right? I'm not wrong, right, Tristan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So
sure.
Anyway, so point is that she then H-Bomber guy asked her what she thought about the N64, and she said that it was her favorite console. And it was not her favorite console. She said she thinks the N64 is the best console ever. So I don't know, man. Like, she seemed like a great candidate for change in the country, but then she said that the N64 is the best console ever. And I'm sorry, but I gotta say, I do question her integrity. But
because she thinks the N64 is the best console.
All I'm saying is, before I understood where she was coming from, now she's a Nintendo-cratic socialist. And I just feel as if...
God damn it.
She's just... No, here's the thing, right? Again, whatever you think about her politics, I think we can all agree, why did she say that? And I'm not even shitting on the N64. I have an N64 by Hey You Pikachu Edition. I love the N64.
What are you talking about, Matt?
I do.
Of course it's the best.
No, that's the issue. There's a difference between saying it's my favorite and her saying it's the best.
Right.
And some will say, oh, she's just pandering. And it's like, no. she's just wrong.
Oh.
And
I'm like, okay, Matt, this is the hill you're gonna die on. All right.
this is the hill I will die on. I will die on this hill. Be- no, but I will admit though, she's not pandering in the sense that she actually mentioned what games, because she said I used to go to my cousin's house and she used to have games like Donkey Kong 64, and also she mentioned Pokemon Snap, so she knows her shit.
Exactly.
She didn't, because if she had some intern searching it up, she would have mentioned, she would have been like, and Mario Party 1, 2, and 3, Super Smash Bros. Like she would have done the Pokemon go to the polls thing.
Yeah. Right.
But she didn't do that. She actually mentioned two games that actually, like, there is love for Pokemon Snap, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like there is, right? But I wouldn't say, especially as someone who doesn't have it, I wouldn't say that that's the game I would go to. So her not going to a game like Mario... Actually, no, I think she did mention Mario 64. Actually, no, yeah, she mentioned Mario 64 and Pokemon Snap. But not going for, like, Pokemon Stadium. For going towards Super Smash Brothers. Right. And a bunch of other games that are super-duper popular. Yeah. I'm not saying anything bad about Pokemon Snap. I'm just saying that some people don't say that's immediately their favorite game on the N64.
Right, yeah.
So for her to jump to it, to me, it feels like there's an actual air of legitimacy. Yeah. Anyway.
Be like, hey, you know, I used to play it at my cousin's, you know, with my family when I was younger, that kind of thing.
And it makes sense because, yeah, she's 28 years old. Of course she was young enough to play the N64 going over to her cousin's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so putting aside the fact that she's wrong, we should talk about the fact that this is still a beautiful stream, irregardless. Right. Regardless, again, of what you think of people's politics and anything like that. I don't know. Like, the thing, too, is, dude, is, like, we don't talk about politics here a lot. Why? Because I don't think that they're relevant to our channel and to what we talk about. But we talk about trans folk, and we talk about people in the LGBTQ plus community, and we talk about other stuff, like, you know, other heavier topics. And the reason why we do is because I don't believe that those are political. And some will talk about social issues and things like that, but it's very odd to me, and you and I have talked about this in person, Tristan, like we've been in the car and I've been like, it's just odd if like I was talking about like, oh, hey, this is me and my girlfriend happens to be African American, and someone's like, ooh, don't talk about politics. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like, so for us to be like, oh, you know, this stream raised a bunch of money for a trans support network. And I think the only thing, like, if you, like, look, if you want to try to get into the nitty gritty and be like, oh, but I disagree with X, Y, and Z, like, I guess I could understand if you were like, oh, you know, Mermaids UK, sadly, they have too much money towards, let's say, like, operating costs versus actually helping trans youth. Now, again, I don't know this. I'm not alleging this. I'm just saying that there are certain charities that I do feel odd trying to give to because I worry that they are going to put too much money towards operating costs, i.e. hiring people and, like, keeping the lights on versus actually helping the people that the charity is based around helping.
Right.
So if you want to talk about that, I think, like, I don't think if you have issues with this, you're immediately transphobe, right?
Yeah, right.
Again, there are people in the trans community who had issues with this. People in the trans community who were like, hey, could we maybe have someone who's in the trans community at the face of something like this rather than some guy who's not? And I do get that, and I get stuff like that. But again, that kind of you know, a breakdown of it is much different than just being like, but trans is being mentally ill. And it's like, no, trans people have mental illness, and that's called depression and anxiety. And if you're wondering, even though I'm not saying that depression or anxiety is caused by a one-to-one action all the time, I would like to say, though, that perhaps, and I'm just putting this out there, perhaps if trans people were not told that they are mentally ill just for being trans a lot of the time that there are, maybe...
Yeah, or that their identity isn't real or doesn't exist. Yeah, when you get told that on a daily basis, it might start to do things to you.
Maybe. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe it's a fucking radical idea here. You know, so again, it's not one-to-one, I know, but it's just so silly to just be like... Oh, it's silly, and I don't mean that frivolously. I mean silly, like I just don't get it. If you're just like, oh, this is, you know, raising money for mental illness, or like, oh, this is you know, this is wrong. It's like, why is this wrong?
Right.
Like, this is a charity.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like, I just don't get it. I really, you know, don't get it. So Either way, though, I'm happy that he did this. I remember, like, even though I didn't watch it, I was following it online. So once AOC got in there, I was like, oh fuck. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa. Because, like, I'm not saying that this wasn't big before, because we had, Chelsea Manning, although I don't know when Manning appeared in there. But Chelsea Manning, if you remember, she leaked intelligence about our government during the Obama administration, and she was then put in a federal prison for it.
Right.
And the information that she leaked, I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just trying to tell you like who she is. If you're like, who's Chelsea Manning? She actually, she released information that we were bombing not only some civilians, but we also killed reporters overseas. And the government, and this is under the Obama administration, so you can't tell me that I'm trying to be this, this SJW lib, right? I'm talking about Obama stuff here. He was like, oh, so let's lock her up. And they locked her up. And they denied her certain things that I want to say that I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to say this lightly, I'm pretty sure they advanced interrogated her, used advanced interrogation techniques, the way they call it. And also they denied her the right to transition in prison.
Right.
So she comes onto the stream as someone who has transitioned and who is also just, talking about, I don't know what she talked about in particular, but I only bring up the politics stuff is because AOC appeared there as well, and we talked about her. So let's also bring up who Chelsea Manning is. They talk about activist and whistleblower, but I want to go a little bit more into it in case some people are just like, you're just an SJW who only likes the SJWs, and you're a Democrat. It's like, well, here we are. Well, here we are. Well, here we are. But again, before we wrap this up, I just want to remind everyone, Graham Lineham is a fucking asshole. And let's just wrap this all together with the reminder. Fuck that guy. Also, people were making pictures of like Donkey Kong 64 where it was just like taking like the font and everything and being like, so Donkey Kong 64 supports trans rights or something like that, like really nice, like fun memes about, but like it looks like it's literally like official box art where it's like Donkey Kong trans rights instead of 64. It was nice. It was a really nice, I would have said 24 hours. No, it was really nice 2 days.
Yeah.
And but like we said earlier when we were talking about some other allegations, we just want to make sure that this was a nice event. I'm happy that they raised as much as they raised during this event.
Right.
But we cannot forget, and we can't be like, perfect, we've done it. You haven't done anything. You did that specific thing.
Right.
Now let's also have more charity streams.
Right. Keep the ball rolling.
Let's keep the ball rolling, and let's also accept more trans people into different entertainment communities, and actually not have a situation where we fucking cast Scarlett Johansson as a trans man. I don't know if you remember that story, Tristan. I'll talk to you about that later. Right. They were going to cast her as a trans man in a movie. To play, and by the way, not as a fictional character. She was playing a character who actually has autobiographies. Like it's based off of his real life.
Oh boy!
And they were going to cast her to be a trans man.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, either way,
I do want to say props to Bomberman. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 56 hours.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. More than 2 days.
Yeah. For the entire stream, and he did beat the game, and he wanted to go for 100% completion, and I think he did. I think it was a 101%. I haven't played Donkey Kong 64, but
I've barely
get all the items and everything.
Yeah.
So like props to him, man. Like I actually checked out the stream, not while it was going, but I wanted to see if it was still going, and it's like completed the game, going to sleep. Thank you, everybody. The donation link is still open below. I'm like, all right, props, man. You earned that sleep.
I would have died.
Yeah.
No, I would have died if I had to do that for that long.
Yeah. No, it's not easy.
Yeah. Even if we could try to get make sure that like my family doesn't interrupt or anything like that, I would die if I streamed for that long. Like it's just a lot. Like to do something. We're gonna need a
lot of coffee, Matt.
We would, yeah. Like it's nuts. Ooh. So anyway, before we wrap things up, again, Graham Lineham, asshole. And also would like to mention, the reason why I said earlier that he kind of started this is because it was his recent comments that made H Bomber Guy want to do this.
Right.
So either way, I think, again, I can understand why some people would say that it's a negative, like, let's just do this without some asshole instigating it. But at the same time, I do think that it's just nice to see that through negativity, something positive comes out of it. You know?
Yeah.
So that's that. I want to hear what some of you guys think about this down below.